Good morning, second graders. Happy Wednesday. This lesson is for Thursday, your Thursday math lesson, which is lesson 15-3 centimeters. We are continuing with measuring length. Yesterday we learned about measurement in inches, and today we will be working with measurement in centimeters. All right, so we've already learned how to measure the length of objects with inch rulers. That's what we did yesterday, and today we will learn how to measure length using another standard unit called a centimeter, which is smaller than an inch. Many rulers have inches on one side and centimeters on the other, or inches on the top, centimeters on the bottom. You can check and see if your ruler has that. There are some rulers with just centimeters and with just inches as well. So the abbreviation for centimeter is cm. So if you see that on your ruler, cm, that is a centimeter, okay? And it is about the width of your smallest finger. So if you look at your pinky finger, the centimeter is about that width. It's pretty small, okay? I wanted to show you a resource you can use other than our Pearson Realize resource. I've talked about this before many times, and you all have access to BrainPop right now during this long distance learning time. So if you go onto the main BrainPop website, the BrainPop Junior website to be specific, go to the math section. And then there are all these different categories. So we talked about money in our last topic. Now we're working with measurement. You see the ruler here. You click on measurement. And there are tons of resources for measurement. So we're measuring length for this topic. So the videos that will probably be most useful to us are the centimeters, meters, and kilometers, and then the inches and feet. We haven't gotten to meters or feet yet, but we will in this topic. All right, let's get started with our Pearson Realize video, and then we are going to be doing the digital quick check together. Well, I have the quick check worksheet up, but it's the same as the digital quick check. So just like yesterday, make sure you watch this video first before you get started on your quick check, just to make sure you really understand the lesson. All right, let's get going.
You can measure the length of an object in centimeters. What objects can you think of that are about 1 centimeter long?
What are some things that you can think of that are about 1 centimeter long? It's very tiny. Remember I told you the centimeter is about the width of your smallest finger. So your pinky finger, that width, that's about 1 centimeter wide.
Some objects that are about 1 centimeter long are your fingernail and a blueberry. Look at the end of the cube. Between which two numbers on the ruler does the cube end?
Okay, so we can see, just like with the inch ruler, we start the object all the way at the 0 mark, or the total left side of the ruler. So here is the beginning of the cube. Here is the end of the cube. Between which two numbers, which 2 centimeter markings on the ruler does this cube end? So at this point, we see that the end of the cube is between the 1 centimeter mark and the 2 centimeter mark. See where it falls right here? Here's the 1 centimeter mark, here's the 2 centimeter mark. It is in between those two numbers.
The cube ends between 1 and 2 centimeters on the ruler. To measure to the nearest centimeter, look for the halfway mark. It is halfway between 1 and 2 centimeters. If the object is longer than halfway, use the greater number. The greater number is 2. The cube is about 2 centimeters long. How do you know the cube is about 2 centimeters long?
Okay, so This is very similar to yesterday's process with measuring in inches. The only difference is that we are now using a different unit of measurement, which is centimeters, which are smaller than inches. But you do the exact same process to measure something in centimeters. You will line up the object at the 0 mark, see where the end of the object falls, and compare that with your centimeter markings on the ruler. And you will always use that halfway mark as a guide. If your object is not exactly lined up with a centimeter marking on the ruler, then that halfway mark will give you an indication or a clue about how long in centimeters that object is. If the object's end is past the halfway mark, then we use the bigger number. If the object's end falls before the halfway mark, then we use the smaller number, just like we do on inches. So how do we know that the cube is about 2 centimeters long? Well, we know that the end of the cube falls between the 1 centimeter mark and the 2 centimeter mark, and its end is past the halfway point. So we use the greater number, 2 centimeters.
It is longer than the halfway mark between 1 and 2 centimeters. Now look at the end of the paperclip. Between which two numbers on the ruler does the paperclip end?
Okay, so let's look at this paperclip. We see that the paperclip is lined up with the 0 marking. The end of the paperclip falls between the 3 centimeter mark and the 4 centimeter mark. It falls right here. If you line up your mouse or your finger, whatever you have, we see that the paperclip ends between the 3 centimeter and the 4 centimeter mark.
The paperclip ends between the 3 and 4 centimeter marks on the ruler. Is the paperclip longer or shorter than the halfway mark?
Use that halfway mark as your guide. The halfway mark between 3 and 4 is right here. Does the paperclip end before or after the halfway mark? Is it longer or shorter than the halfway mark? It is shorter than the halfway mark. So ask yourselves right now, are we going to say that this paperclip is about 3 centimeters long or 4 centimeters long? What do we do when our object falls before the halfway mark? Do we use the smaller number or the bigger number?
The paperclip is shorter than the halfway mark. If the object is shorter than halfway, use the lesser number. The lesser number is 3. This paperclip is about 3 centimeters long. Now you know how to measure the length of an object in centimeters.
Okay, so we know now, after our first 3 lessons, that the length of any object can be used as a measurement unit for length. For example, we can say that something is so many paperclips long or so many cubes long. But a standard unit, like an inch or a centimeter, is always the same length. So if somebody tells you that something is 1 centimeter long, it will always measure 1 centimeter long because a centimeter is a centimeter on any ruler. Same with an inch. In this lesson, we learned that to measure to the nearest centimeter, look at the halfway mark between the 2 nearest centimeters and decide if that object is longer or shorter than halfway. If it's longer than halfway, use the bigger number. If it's shorter than halfway, use the smaller number. All right, let's get started on our quick check. About how long is each object? So we have our centimeter rulers here. Notice that there's no 0 marking here, but we know that all the way to the left before 1 is 0. So that's where we will always start when we measure something. You start at the beginning of the ruler at 0. We see our centimeter markings, and we also see our halfway markings in between each centimeter measurement. So our first object is a paperclip. About how long is this object? Okay, so we see that the beginning of the paperclip is lined up with the 0 marking, and we see that the paperclip falls just after the 2 centimeter mark. So we can say that the paper clip is between 2 centimeters and 3 centimeters long. Let's use that halfway marking as our guide to tell us whether or not the paper clip is closer to 2 or 3 centimeters. I can see here that the paper clip is not quite at the halfway mark between 2 and 3. It is shorter than the halfway mark, so I use the smaller number. I am going to say that this paper clip is about 2 centimeters long. That would be B. Okay, our next object is an eraser. I see that the eraser is lined up, the beginning of it is lined up with the 0 marking, and I can see the end of the eraser, the very longest point of the eraser, not down below here, but all the way here at the top, is very close to the 5 centimeter marking. It is, if I draw a line, just shy of the 5 centimeter marking. So it's in between 4 centimeters and 5 centimeters. I need to use this halfway point as my guide, and as you can see, I've drawn this line to where the very end of the eraser falls, which is clearly after the halfway point. When an object falls longer or after the halfway point between 2 centimeter markings, I use the bigger number. That means this eraser, is about 5 centimeters long. That is A. So always use the furthest point of the object you're measuring. This is not an exact rectangle. See how it's shorter on one side and longer on the other side. Use that longer side. And number 3, writing in math. Measure the pen to the nearest centimeter. Okay, so I have a pen here. I can see one end of the pen is lined up with the 0 marking, and the pen stretches all the way to this point. I'll draw a line to show you. It's not a perfect line, but I can see that the pen falls between the 7 centimeter marking and the 8 centimeter marking on my ruler. Because the pen's furthest tip is at this point, which is after 7, but before the halfway point, I use the smaller number. That means that this pen is about 7 centimeters long. It is not quite at the halfway point between 7 and 8, so I use the smaller number. My answer is going to be 7. The pen is about 7 centimeters. Now the question asks, tell how you measure to the nearest centimeter. Well, not quite a question, more of a command there, okay? Tell how you measure to the nearest centimeter. So we'll use this pen as our example. We have to look at the pen first. And what do we see when we look at the pen? When it's lined up with the 0 marking and its furthest point, we can see that it is a little longer than 7 centimeters. And I'll use that abbreviation, CM. I look at the pen and I see that it is a little longer than 7 centimeters. It measures between 7 centimeters and 8 centimeters. Correct? Our pen measures between 7 and 8 centimeters. I then use the halfway mark as my guide. The pen is shorter than the halfway mark, so we say the pen is about 7 centimeters. All right, there's our explanation. Tell how you measure to the nearest centimeter. I look at the pen. I see that it is longer than 7 centimeters. It measures between 7 centimeters and 8 centimeters. I then use the halfway mark as my guide. The pen is shorter than the halfway mark, So it is about 7 centimeters long. All right, that is a correct measurement. And this is a very complete and correct explanation giving the steps for using centimeters to measure an object. All right, guys, I hope this was helpful for you. Make sure to check out those brain pops if you want a little bit of extra review. And have a great day. Bye.